again!
It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good...
Hello and welcome to Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get the show started. On the show today, is the biggest cricket rivalry in the world going to be put on hold? Murmurs are strong of India not wanting to be grouped with Pakistan in any ICC event hereon. Additional blow to everyone, including the broadcasters, over the hybrid model plan that swung into motion recently. What are the impediments to this, and can this truly happen? Not just cricket, the no visas to Pakistani nationals has also thrown other sporting ties into confusion. India is hosting a few mega events this year. Will that see no Pakistan participation, even as voices within the sporting fraternity start to speak out against the violence and taking a stand against Pakistan? Breaking away from news elsewhere, Norwegian authorities have sent out an advisory to their athletes to avoid consuming meat in China for fear of a dope test turning positive. Has the Sinner fiasco triggered panic in the rest of the sporting world? All of that heading your way, but first a look at the headlines on Sports 360. Starting with cricket, Bengaluru beat Rajasthan by 11 runs in an IPL fixture. Put into bat first, Virat Kohli's 70 powered Bengaluru to 205. In reply, Rajasthan were cruising at one stage, but a brilliant 19th over from Josh Hazlewood restricted Rajasthan to just 194. The Aussie quick picked 4 wickets to become the player of the match in Bengaluru's first home game win of the season. In tennis, world number 3 Carlos Alcaraz has withdrawn from the Madrid Open due to a thigh injury that he had picked up during his campaign in Barcelona, where he had lost in the final. The 4-time Grand Slam winner is expected to return for the Rome Open next month. Meanwhile, in the women's draw, world number 2 Iga Swiatek has advanced to the round of 32 of the Madrid Open. After losing the first set, Swiatek bounced right back to win 4-6, 6-4, 6-2 against Alexandra Ila. The Pole will now face Linda Noskova in the next round. In chess, world number 1 Magnus Carlsen achieved a new record after he won all his 9 games at the German Freestyle Open. It was a result comparable to Bobby Fischer's 11 out of 11 games won at the 1964 US Championship. The Norwegian also surpassed 3,153 rating points, getting past Fabiano Caruana's previous record. And in football, Italian clubs paid tribute to Pope Francis as football resumed in the country. Serie A clubs Inter Milan and AC Milan held a moment of silence in the memory of Pope before their Coppa Italia semi-final fixture. AC Milan qualified for the final with a 4-1 aggregate win. There is hurt, there is anger. It's been just a few days since the attack in Pahalgam, but the repercussions are coming in thick and fast. What's the one thing that's most dear to Pakistan, that is fighting to stay afloat in a country that has been hit hard by one crisis after another? What's the one thing that still gets the country going in an otherwise gloomy affair? It's cricket, of course, the heartbeat of the nation. Despite a horrid show in consecutive ICC events, Pakistan and cricket is one undying bond. And India has hit where it's going to hurt the most. Remember when we were kids, when cricket was enjoyed for the contests on the field, unadulterated cricket, pure joy. There was an India versus rest of the world match, and we used to wonder how a best of India and Pakistan would look like. What if we could make one team with the best of these two brilliant cricketing countries? Pakistan's searing fast bowlers and India's wily spinners, India's swashbuckling top order and Pakistan's resolute middle order. The combination would have been deadly. But forget about the fantasy of playing as one team. India and Pakistan just might not even face each other on the field. There's a strong sentiment that India and Pakistan should not be in the same group for any ICC event hereon. Why this unprecedented and drastic scenario though? India retaliated after the brutal attack on tourist civilians by terrorists who had crossed over. India released their agenda, which involved sending out a clear message to Pakistan. There was going to be no tolerance towards a country that was harboring and funding violence. Pakistan retorted with an almost identical response. They aped it all, trying to sound just as tough and enraged. But truth is, India's response was justified. It was a retaliation to violence. Pakistan made it a tit-for-tat affair, like a play-school tiff. But coming back to cricket, every party invested in an ICC tournament, from the ICC themselves, that's the governing body, to the PCB, the BCCI, the broadcasters, the sponsors, everyone involved in an event that means India and Pakistan facing off, have been always viewing this from one single lens, which is revenue. India versus Pakistan, no matter how insipid and dull the eventual contest turns out to be these days, brings in the monies, brings in the eyeballs, the attention, the TRPs, the viewership. So despite a contest not being half as engaging as it once was, it's a win-win situation for everyone. Everyone is happy. BCCI is more stern than ever before regarding the bilateral ties, of course, which anyway ceased temporarily with India last touring in 2008 and Pakistan in 2012. There was anyway very little chance of that getting revived. And this attack shut the door firmly on that ever happening. But can the custodians of the sport take such a step when it comes to ICC events of India and Pakistan not being in the same group, which could essentially mean a death knell to a rivalry itself? A cricketing rivalry that India did its best to keep fueling. ICC wanted Pakistan to host the Champions Trophy this year. BCCI complied. Just that India couldn't travel to Pakistan given the security concerns, a fact that's backed by numbers. So it was a hybrid affair. Pakistan wanted every country, including India, to print the host country's name in their jerseys. BCCI complied, even though they did not play a single game in Pakistan. It was unfortunate that Pakistan's cricket team couldn't even cross the initial stages of the tournament and made yet another disappointing exit. India, on the other hand, went on to win the whole thing. And that's the kind of resolve they would want to impose now off the field too. They have thought with logic all this while, with reason, for the love and growth of the sport. But will the attack on innocent civilians force the board to stay with India's response as a country across various spheres, including cricket? It's a sentiment that resonates with many cricketers, few of whom have made their intentions abundantly clear. I want to pick out some lines out of this one. Why should we always be sporting when our people are dying? We should respond in the language they truly understand, not through cricket, not through the contests of bat and ball, but with resolve, with dignity and zero tolerance. That's the bottom line. But can this truly happen given the situation? Let me explain. The Men's Asia Cup and the Women's World Cup are the two big ICC events lined up this year, both scheduled in a few months from now, in fact. Asia Cup in September and Women's World Cup in October. Asia Cup is set to be hosted by UAE and Sri Lanka, but here's the catch. The Asian Cricket Council, chaired by none other than PCB chief Mohsin Naqvi himself, has sold the rights for the Asia Cup for $170 million for 4 editions, with an unofficial understanding that India and Pakistan will face each other at least twice, with the bonus possibility of a third time in case the two make it to the final. This 2025 edition is set to cost $38 million alone, most of which is riding on this one face-off, India versus Pakistan. Then, of course, there is the Women's World Cup. That's in October. Pakistan has qualified for the tournament. Needless to say, this would apply to the women's events too. And the headache doesn't end here. It won't. Thanks to a packed schedule and so many ICC tournaments, the chances of every year having an ICC event is high. Till now, despite the geopolitical tensions surrounding India and Pakistan, despite the two nations not seeing eye to eye, India has always chosen to think with the head. But can India choose ethical and moral grounds rather than revenue and finances instead? Will the sport survive this move? India wants to show that it stands with its people and that cannot be restricted to just the political corridors and treaties and diplomacy. Will that be seen on the cricket field too? Relations between India and Pakistan are disintegrating following the Pahalgam terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir. While the Indian government has responded with restrictions and other impositions, the sporting world too seems to be in the verge of falling in sync with this, with a potential boycott of all sporting ties between the two nations lying in wait. India is responding to this heinous crime by a strategic overhaul across various spheres. In the coming year, India is set to host a few big non-cricket sporting events, and while there has been a complete full stop to bilateral ties between India and Pakistan over in cricket, other sporting disciplines have managed to continue the contests owing to a rather cordial relationship. And of course, the biggest reason, it isn't as sharp in focus as cricket and cricketers are. Hockey, squash and other racket sports had remained unaffected, like how there were calls for a neutral venue for ICC matches hosted by either country. Other sporting disciplines still saw national teams travelling between India and Pakistan. In fact, the kind of intense rivalry we clamour for in cricket has been present more across other disciplines, with the contests happening in the countries also being key, like India's tennis squad. They visited Pakistan for their Davis Cup tie just earlier this year, a historic first in over half a century. Because the last time an Indian Davis Cup team visited Pakistan was way back in 1964. And the tie did live up to all the hype and expectations. Sure, the fixture didn't and the scoreline didn't say so, but the excitement of an Indian team in Pakistan in a sport like tennis set up quite the fanfare. And this was not all. Pakistan's hockey team visited India via the Atari border. This was to participate in the Asian Champions Trophy a couple of years ago in 2023. A sport that has seen great rivalry between these two sides dating back many decades. And then, of course, there's squash. This is one sport where Pakistan has been quite impressive against India. Pakistan have historically been competitive at World Championship with 14 gold medals to their name. At the Asian Games, India have a better record, though just about barely, with 3 gold medals to that of Pakistan's 2. Over in Commonwealth Games, it is India's 1 gold that pips their neighbours. And this is the reason why when the two teams compete at the world stage, it is always a spectacle for both sections of fans. Something similar happened in the finals of the Asian Games in 2023. They were competing for gold and it was nothing short of a dramatic movie. The game was tied at 1-1. India were behind in the final round, but it was India's Abhay Singh who held on to his nerves to give India the gold. Such has been the India versus Pakistan rivalry for ages. But maybe we've seen the last chapter, because following the terror attack in Pahalgam, even other sporting events do not want to be a part of this rivalry. And the starting point of that decision could be hockey. India is set to host the Men's Hockey Asia Cup, which will also act as a qualifier for the 2026 FIH World Cup. It's big. Earlier this month, Hockey India had confirmed that Pakistan would travel across the border to play in India. But following the attack, there are doubts hanging over that too, because India has imposed a no visa policy for Pakistanis. The Hockey India Federation is sticking to that. India has long kept politics away from sports, but this time the situation is different, and it isn't just with hockey. The broadcast of Pakistan Super League or the PSL has been banned across India. A growing bromance has also come under the scanner. Neeraj Chopra, who'd invited Pakistan's Arshad Nadeem for his javelin throw event, which is set to take place in Bengaluru next month. Nadeem declined the invite, but it was the golden boy who faced all the heat. Following the backlash, Neeraj put out a post. The Tokyo Olympic gold medalist clarified that the invite was sent out before the attacks happened and that Nadeem's participation now, following the turmoil of the last few days, was anyway clearly out of question.
There has been so much talk about my decision to invite Arshad Nadeem. The invitation I extended to Arshad was from one athlete to another. Nothing more, nothing less. Invites had gone out to all athletes on Monday, 2 days before the terrorist attacks at Pahalgam. After all that has taken place over the last 48 hours, Arshad's presence at the NC Classic was completely out of the question.
Yes, Nadeem's participation was going to be impossible after this. The anger is palpable. Indian cricket commentator Sunil Gavaskar too couldn't control his emotions during an IPL match broadcast.
I just want to ask a question to all the perpetrators. What has all this fighting achieved? For the last 78 years, not 1 millimeter of land has exchanged hands. So for the next 78,000 years, and all the years after that, nothing is going to change. So why don't we live in peace instead and make our country strong?
Sure, sports is often considered a medium to unite the world. It's expected to promote the essence of unity despite being in the throes of geopolitical chaos. Because sport was always seen as something away from political decisions. Sports is also about level playing field, playing with honesty, holding certain values and standards in the highest regard. All of that comes to naught after such a brazen act. And in such circumstances, the messaging from a country has to always be singular and not scattered or in opposition. The Yannick Sinner doping scandal seems to have shaken the sporting world. There's a sense of panic that seems to have set in. The thought that even the most minor things could set a result askew has stressed out all players, and many have admitted to being anxious about it. And the panic seems to have crossed over to other sporting disciplines too. Norwegian athletes have been advised not to eat any type of meat while competing in China across any athletics event, because consumption of it might cause an unintentional ingestion of a banned substance. Our next report tells you more.
The tennis fraternity is facing a rather bizarre concern. 2 of their top stars were found guilty for doping in both men's and women's disciplines over the last 1 year. While world number 2 Iga Świątek served her 1-month suspension and has returned to professional tennis, men's world number 1 Yannick Sinner is still undergoing his 3-month ban before he returns to the courts. The two continue to maintain that the intake was unintentional. While there's a raging debate on whether the 2 players were let off easily given their ranking and popularity, what everyone is failing to highlight is the impact these cases have had on the mental health of athletes. Iga Świątek has opened up about the anxiety that lingers after she was hit with a 1-month ban, breaking into tears.
Yeah, honestly, after a couple of years, you think about this all the time. It gives a little anxiety, I would say.
And it isn't just players like Świątek who was caught in the web who seem to be overwhelmed by this episode. Many others are just as overwhelmed and anxious. Scared, stressful and anxious. These seem to be the only words coming out of tennis players. The reason? in addition to the pressure of performing and worrying about their matches coming up, they now need to worry about what they eat, what they touch, and who they meet. Which is why athletes are now being advised to avoid certain foods. Norwegian athletes have been asked not to eat any type of meat while competing in China. The governing body that looks after the players fears it could cause a positive doping test. It's nice to be cautious when it comes to evading doping, but the question is, to what extent? Athletes need to follow a particular diet. They need protein to compete at the highest level. And if that's also put under the scanner, how are these athletes expected to stay the course and perform? Sure, the Norwegian advice has come for an athletics event, but it stemmed after doping hit the tennis world. It's never easy when the poster faces of the sports are found guilty. These athletes not only draw the crowd in, but also set an example. And that surely seems to have triggered the panic alarm, putting the tennis fraternity, players and certain associations on high alert.
Time for last serve. This is from the IPL. Mumbai will have more than one reason to put on a show for their fans on Sunday when they host Lucknow at the Wankhede Stadium. As part of Mumbai's initiative to invite underprivileged kids, around 19,000 children from various NGOs, 200 of which with special needs, will be all present to watch some cricket and cheer their heroes on.
People who have been with Mumbai Indians know, but the next home game is very special. We have underprivileged children coming, and the energy is really special. So please put up your best show for them. They wait for years in line to get to come and see one match. And I have to tell you one story that really kind of very, very heartwarming for me. So we give them food in parcels from the time they board the bus till the time they come here and they go back. So there's 4 meals a day that we provide for. So once I sit in that stand with all of them, and this girl was not eating too much. She was just picking on her food and all that. So I said, what happened? Why aren't you eating? She said, I'm saving it for my brother because my brother has never tasted cake in his life. And I think these are the things that we want to kind of support. You please be the inspiration for these children and show them they can be whatever they dream to be.
That wraps it up here on Firstpost. Enjoy the weekend. I'll of course see you on the other side.
Greeting you with aloha and namaste.
I love India.
Presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India. What we saw in Kashmir.
How do you see Trump's America?
Yes, the current administration behaves differently from the previous administration.
Are you saying that there are foreign powers who are trying to bring down the current government in Syria?
Exactly.
Iran, maybe Russia too.
Prime Minister Modi committed to South-South, cooperation.
Not over 50%. Is Ukraine prepared to pay the price for that peace?
No compromises at the cost of territorial integrity and sovereignty.